Hello everyone and welcome to an incredible game from round 8 of this year's FIDE Chess Olympiad. It is the match Iran versus India, and on board 1 we have the very strong Parham Maghsoodloo versus the, well, I have to say incredible Gukesh, who just defeated Wei Yi in the previous round. And here we have a clash of everyone who is undefeated. Parham also undefeated so far in the last 2 games he faced Liem, who defeated, the only player who defeated world champion Llive in the Olympiad, and a draw against Magnus Carlsen. And Gukesh, well, he only drew Richard Rapport and he defeated everyone else. So it's really a clash of titans. Let's see what happened in this one, and we're also going to check out a couple of notable games after we check out this one, but we're not going to deeply analyze them. We're just going to mention them as I usually do at the end of my videos. So let's check it out. Parham with white opens with pawn to d4. Pawn to d5 by Gukesh. We have pawn to c4, pawn to e6, and knight to c3. We have pawn to c5, Gukesh going for the Tarrasch defense. C captures, we have e captures, and knight to f3. We have knight to f6 and pawn to g3, transposing into the symmetrical English setup. Knight to c6, now the 2 knights variation of the Tarrasch, and bishop to g2. We have c captures on d4, knight captures, and bishop to c5. All been played before, nothing new here. Knight to b3 attacks the bishop, and now bishop to b6. We have castles kingside and pawn to d4. Chasing away the knight, we have knight to a4 attacking the bishop, and castles kingside by Gukesh. And it's a very, very popular position. Bishop to g5 along with knight captures on b6 are the 2 most popular moves. But here we have rook to e1 by Parham, and it's already very, very rare territory where rook to e8 and bishop to e6 are known moves, but we have pawn to h6 by Gukesh, stopping bishop to g5, and it is now as of move 12 that we have a completely new game. So okay, bishop to f4, nicely developing the bishop, also a very, very active square. Bishop to e6 and knight b to c5. An excellent square for the knight, plus if you want to get rid of it, you will have to capture with the bishop. So bishop to d5, offering a trade of bishops and giving up the b7 pawn. And the question is, should you capture the b7 pawn? Is it a free pawn? Is it a trap? Well, the best move is to capture the pawn, but the best move is also the most complicated one. And here you will see what craziness they have in store for you. Knight captures on b7 was not played, but instead knight captures on b6 first. First eliminating the bishop, then going after the b7 pawn, a captures and knight captures on b7, but now it's not as great. Queen to d7 attacks the knight, and pawn to e4. Okay, what happens next? D captures on e3 en passant, and rook captures on e3. And now the question is, do you capture the knight on b7? Well, if you do, the queen captures on b7, it's a very, very long line that if played to perfection is a draw. If bishop captures on d5, okay, you will pin the bishop, rook a to d8, rook to d3 defending, and now you cannot attack it again as the knight is also pinned. So we're going to play knight captures on d5, rook captures, and now this tricky knight to e5 move. You open up a double attack on the rook, and after rook captures on d8, knight to f3 with check, forcing the king to go under the mask of the knight. King to g2, and now knight to d4 check. You could also play knight to h4 to go for a double check, but the king escapes to h3. So the best move is knight to d4. You want to capture the rook next. So let's say pawn to f3, rook captures on d8, and you would get something like this, which is, like I said, a draw. White is up a pawn, but the white king is also a bit more vulnerable. So that's what could happen after rook captures on a3. But Gukesh plays the absolute best move, and that is knight to b4. And this puts a lot of pressure on Parham's position because, okay, he does have to save the knight now. Knight to d6 and bishop captures on g2. We have king captures, rook a to d8, and now rook to b3, attacking the knight, both of them playing top moves. Knight b to d5, attacking the bishop, and now bishop to e5. We have queen to e6, threatening rook captures on d6 to grab the knight and bishop for the rook, and we have queen to d4. And you definitely should play rook captures on d6 now. However, Gukesh plays knight to g4. He gives Parham the opportunity of playing bishop captures on g7, which is is the move that Parham should play. Bishop captures on g7, and after knight d to e3 with check, you'll play rook captures, attack the queen, and after knight gives a check again, queen captures, king captures on g7, queen captures on e6, f captures, and now you're going to move the knight, and Parham will have, okay, he's down the exchange, but he's up 2 pawns, he definitely has counterplay. But after knight to g4, rook to d1 was played by Parham, still not a losing move or anything, the game continues, but now Gukesh goes knight to e7, and bishop captures on g7. So similar, but not quite the same. Knight to f5 attacks the queen and the bishop, and now queen to f4. It would be very, very interesting to offer a queen sacrifice with knight captures on f5, but Gukesh is under no obligation to actually capture on d4 and allow knight captures on d4. He will just play queen captures on f5, and after, let's say, queen to f4, you will trade queens, play rook captures on d1, and after bishop captures on f8, king captures and rook captures on b6, you will again have this position where Gukesh is up a knight, but Parham is up 3 pawns. So again, should be playable. But after knight to f5, queen to f4 was played right away, and now knight captures on g7. We have rook captures on b6, now defending the knight on d6, also maybe threatening some nasty discoveries, and pawn to f5. Now you could start running away with the pawn right away. Pawn to h3 first, kicks away the knight, knight to e5, and now you should play pawn to a4 or pawn to b3 or queen to e3, but in the game knight to c4 was played, and this is a big problem as Parham blunders the game away. Do you see what happens? Why is this such a bad move? Feel free to pause the video and try to work it out while I give you a couple of seconds. Seems like, he just blundered a piece, but unless you see a very, very particular move, it doesn't matter that you win a piece. So that's probably what Parham missed. So of course, all of you can see queen captures on c4, and that there's nothing to worry about here. You're just up material. And if queen captures on c4, then it's terrible. Knight captures on c4, rook captures on d8. You're going to play rook captures on d8, rook captures on h6, knight captures on b2, and okay, I mean, 2 knights... completely winning. So after queen captures on c4, rook captures on d8 was played, rook captures on d8, and queen captures on e5. And okay, Parham probably thought, okay, Gukesh is up a knight, but his king is wide in the open. I have 2 connected pass pawns on the queen side. Surely this is compensation enough, but he missed one move that throws his whole position down the drain. Feel free to pause the video and take another win for Gukesh while I give you a couple of seconds. The move, of course, is queen to f1 check. Not right away, so congratulations if you thought about that, but not really. Rook to d1, preparing queen to f1 check, and there is no defense against that. You can give one check, the king will always be able to hide on h7, as the f5 pawn is also defended by the knight, so rook to b3 was played, covering the 3rd rank. It does not help. Queen to f1 check, we have king to f3, queen to h1 check, king to f4, and now rook to d5, and he was in this position on move 34 that Parham Maghsoodloo resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. If you have to move the queen, let's say you play something like queen to e7, the trick, of course, is knight to h5 check. The king has only 1 square, king to e3, and now you go queen to e1 with check. You can win the white queen, and then you're gonna checkmate the king very, very quickly. Or if you don't move to let's say you go queen to b8 with check, the king again hides on h7. There are no checks, you can play rook to f3. Okay, now the queen cannot go to e4, but still knight to h5 check. Again, king e3 only move, and now queen to e1 will also be checkmate as you've blocked the f3 square. So something like that. So incredible victory for Gukesh with the black pieces against the 27-23 Parham Maghsoodloo board 1 for Iran, who was also undefeated in this tournament. Like I said, in the previous 2 rounds, he faced Liem, who defeated Ding Liren, only player in the tournament to defeat Ding Liren, and a draw against Magnus Carlsen. So yeah, absolutely sensational. And Gukesh is playing now. Like I've said, out of the 8 rounds, 7 wins and only 1 draw against Richard Rapport. Now it's gonna be legendary to get even a draw against Gukesh, and he's currently playing at a rating performance of 3085. That is out of this world. But okay, we still have a few more rounds in the Olympiad. Let's not jinx him or spoil anything. who knows how this might end up. We might have a 2800 Gukesh by the time the Olympiad ends. And we're going to discuss the ratings, but first let's check out a couple of notable mentions. So this is also one that you guys were really looking forward to. Board 3, Bardiya Daneshvar versus Arjun Erigaisi, both of them also undefeated. So we're just gonna quickly go through this one, as it's over really quickly, but it's a very nice game. So Bardiya started off with a reti. We have pawn to d5, g3, knight f6, bishop g2, c5, castles, and pawn to e6. So the sort of a Sicilian variation of the King's Indian attack. c4, we have d4 and d3. Transposing into the Neo-Catalan, we have knight to c6, e3, knight to d7, knight to a3 and e5. Okay, nothing new here. Knight to h4, d captures on e3, f captures, knight to f6, and knight to b5. We have bishop to g4, attacking the queen on d1 and queen to b3. Queen to d7 by Arjun, and now knight to c3. We have rook to d8 and knight to d5. Bishop to e7, bishop to d2, castles kingside, and now rook 8 to e1. And both players are playing very nicely, nothing wrong with the position here. Bishop to e6, we have pawn to e4, and now knight to d4. Attacks the queen, queen goes to c3, knight captures on d5, c captures on d5, and bishop to g4. Bishop to e3, as you can see, it receives a question mark. Bishop captures on h4, g captures on h4, and pawn to f5. Bishop captures on d4, c captures. Arjun getting a lot of very strong pawns in the center. Queen c5 and pawn to f4. We have rook to f2. b6 attacks the queen, queen b4, and now pawn to f3, opening up white's king side completely. Bishop to f1 and bishop to h5. We have king to h1, and now rook to f6, shifting the rook into the attack. We have h3, rook to c8. We have queen to d2, now comes rook to g6 and rook to c1, putting pressure on that rook on c8. Rook to f8, avoiding the rook trade, also defending the pawn on f3. Queen to b4, and now pawn to h6, creating some breathing room for his own king. Rook f to c2, doubling up on the c file, and pawn to f2. We have rook to c7, attacking Arjun's queen, and the white's position is already lost, but Arjun decides to finish the game in great style. He plays rook to g1 check, and after king to h2, rook captures on f1. Getting the brilliancy double exclamation mark, he sacrifices the queen. If you don't capture the queen, you capture the rook. Okay, just queen captures rook, you're up a full piece. So rook captures on d7 was played, rook captures on c1, and now rook to d6, but it doesn't matter. You're getting checkmated. For example, f1 queen, and you're gonna get mated on the next move, or something like rook to g6. You can prolong it for a little bit, but only for a little bit. Rook to g2 and rook captures will be checkmate. So huge victory for Arjun, and Vidit also won on board 4. So I believe India versus Iran 3.5 to half. They are untouchable. 8 victories out of 8 rounds. I mean, absolutely incredible. We'll see what happens. I'm still looking forward to maybe Norway doing incredibly well and we getting a Gukesh versus Magnus match, but we'll have to see if that happens. Also, Liem versus Magnus Carlsen, a big game. Vietnam versus Norway. Liem, like I said, only player to defeat Ding Liren. Let's see how he did against Magnus Carlsen in this game. Both of them going into this round undefeated. Let's check it out real quickly. d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, and d5. The queen's gambit declined. Knight c3, c6, the semi-Slav by Magnus, bishop to g5, and now knight b to d7. e3, h6, bishop to h4, bishop e7, rook to c1, castles, nothing new here. a3, a6, c captures, e captures, queen c2, knight e8, offering a trade of bishops, and bishop to g3 declining. Magnus again offers it. Bishop to d3, captures, and knight d to f6, fighting for that e4 square, knight to e5, and knight to d6. We have f3 and rook to e8. So, okay, it seems that Liem wants to be the one who's attacking. He has the semi-open h-file for his rook, the queen and bishop very nicely going after that black king, and the knight on e5, all very, very unpleasant stuff that when you guys face, of course, you always lose. Knight to e2, we have knight to d7, and rook to h5. We have pawn to f6 by Magnus, chasing away the knight. Knight captures, bishop captures, and king to f2, and now pawn to f5. Magnus sets a little bit of a trap here. cutting off the bishop and queen from the game, but also threatening a very nasty idea. We have rook to e1, and now rook captures on e3. Seemingly a rook sacrifice, but not really, because after king captures, queen to e8 check will pick up the undefended rook on h5. King f2, queen captures, and now queen to c5. Queen to g6 and queen to b6. We have queen to f6, queen to c7, and now bishop to e8. We have knight to f4 and rook to c8, attacking the queen, and Liem decides to capture the rook. He sacrifices the queen, and this is just an incredible position, because look at this. Knight captures, rook captures with check, king to f7, and now rook captures. Okay, you have rook, knight, and bishop for a queen, but now Magnus plays queen captures on d4 check, connects nicely with the bishop, king f1, and g5. Seems like, okay, the knight has to move, Magnus captures the bishop, and it's game over. Not quite. Rook to f8 check, and now if you capture the rook, then knight to d6 check picks up the queen on d4. So king to e7, we have knight to g6 check, king goes to d6, and now bishop captures on f5. And all of the pieces survive. It's rook, knight, and bishop versus queen. But Magnus plays queen captures on b2, and now Magnus says, I'm just going to capture the a3 pawn and advance the a pawn to victory. If your pieces cannot checkmate my king, that means I win the game. Pawn to f4, we have queen captures on a3, king f2, a5. Magnus starts advancing the passed pawn. Knight e5, a4, rook to f7, queen to b2 with check. We have king to f1, queen to b5 with check, bishop to d3, and now queen to b3. We have bishop back to f5, and Magnus just continues advancing the pawn. And it seems like there's nothing Liem can do, but he finds a very, very tricky maneuver. Knight to d3. Cuts off the king from e5 and c5, and the threat is now rook to d7 checkmate. But now look at this, Magnus just sacrifices the queen right back. Queen captures on d3, and there's no way for the rook and bishop to stop the passed pawn. Bishop captures queen on d3, a2, rook captures on b7, and now queen comes into the game. a1, king to e2, and now queen to g1. And it was in this position on move 45 that Liem resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. The queen will overpower the bishop and rook. It was okay, still maybe a game with the knight, but without the knight, there is nothing he can do. Now the king's pawns will fall, and that's pretty much it. And the last game I wanted to show you is Maxime Lagarde versus Levon Aronian, as this is one beautiful king hunt. E4, e6, d4, pawn to d5, knight c3, knight f6, bishop to g5, the classical variation of the French. D captures, knight captures, and bishop to e7. Bishop captures, g captures, and knight to c3. Knight to c6, knight g to e2, defending the pawn on d4. A6 and pawn to g3. We have e5, pawn to d5 attacking the knight, and knight to a7. We have queen to d3, queen to d6, and castles queenside. We have pawn to f5, pawn to h4, and now bishop to d7. We have bishop to h3 and pawn to e4. Attacking the queen, we have queen to e3 and knight to b5. Attacking the knight on c3, f3, and knight captures on c3. We have knight captures on c3 and rook to g8, putting pressure on that g3 pawn. Pawn captures on e4, we have rook captures on g3, attacking the queen, as the queen on d6 defends the rook. Queen to d4, and this is the only mistake by Maxime Lagarde so far. Bishop to f6 attacks the queen, pawn to e5, the second mistake, and now bishop captures on e5. Rook to e1 attacks Levon's bishop on e5, but now pawn to f6, queen to f2, and now rook captures on c3. B captures on c3, we have castles queenside. Bishop captures on f5, queen to a3 with check, and now look at this beautiful king hunt. King to d1, we have queen captures on a2, rook to h3, and now bishop captures on f5. Queen captures on f5, king to b8, and now rook to d3. Bishop captures on c3, getting a double exclamation mark, and now rook to e1, getting the rook out of harm's way. Queen to b1 with check, king to e2, now queen captures on c2 check, king f3, rook to g8, cutting the king off from the g file, and now you're getting mated whatever you do. Rook f2 was played, queen to b1, we have queen captures on h7, and queen to h1 check. King f4, bishop to e5 check, king to f5, and queen to g1. We have king to e6, queen to g4 with check, rook to f5 blocking, and bishop to d6. We have rook to f3, Rook to e8 with check, forcing the king to capture on f6. King captures on f6, and now rook to f8 check. And he was in this position on move 39 that Maxime Lagarde resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. He can either give up the queen with queen to f7, or he goes king to e6, and then it's a very nice queen to e4 check. You're going to play rook e5, and then just queen captures on e5, or king to d7, and queen to e8 will be checkmate. So this is probably best, as you survive for an extra move. So yeah, those were the extra games I wanted to show you guys, and here are the live ratings. Also something I wanted to show you. As you can see, Magnus also winning some points. Sorry about that. 28-36. So he only has 2 draws, but still it's very hard for him to gain rating with 28-36. Fabi also gained some rating with 28-03. Hikaru with 28-02. Arjun Ergaisi 2792.7. So very, very close to 2800. He is currently on plus 14. Gukesh is on plus 20. He is now world number 5 ahead of Nodirbek Abdusattorov on 2784, and Nodirbek also a plus 14, 2780. Other big winners, Kwang Liem Le also plus 4 points, 2745. Levon Aronian 2739 plus 10 points. Good to see Levon getting up there, and Yang Shishto Duda, even though he had some bad moments in the tournament, still winning some rating. But look at this, Anand still in the top 10. He drops out every day, and then he jumps right back in every day. So he's a permanent member of the world top 10. So yeah, that's the game, and those were the games. Hope you guys enjoyed that. And yeah, like I said, there are so many games being played, I cannot analyze all of them, but I will give you my favorite of the day. And I mean, Gukesh, Parham, simply for the importance and for the strength of play, had to be shown. So hope you enjoyed that. I would like to thank John Anderson, Anthony Littleman, Anonymous, and Grandmaster Uncle Moves Only for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.